What's up, and welcome to the final SPL recap of Season 2. It's done. It's dusted. It's over. And with that, the only people left are the regulars. I'm joined by Hamilton and Colin. Real quick, just want to say thank you to you two for, I'd say, a very successful Season 2. And of course, thanks to everyone who participated. How do you guys feel about Season 2 as a whole?
No, it
I
was
personally,
bullshit. Terrible league. Atrocious. It was rigged. Commissioner sucks.
I was
No.
going to go the different route of saying I think that it was a great league, but I am really looking forward to season 3, where I've got the possibility to succeed at a much higher level and a significantly higher probability of not having Peach on my roster.
Hamilton,
I,
when was the
I
last
don't know
time
if I
that you
agree with
played
that.
a game that mattered?
I mean, I would argue it was season 1, but
I think
uh,
weeks. The first 4 weeks mattered.
And you were like eliminated by like week 5.
I think for maybe not for the outcome of this season, but in our minds, the Daisy versus Peach game mattered.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I didn't win that one though. So
You did not.
but you
No.
made history.
yes, sir. First ever Peach win.
Yeah. But let's go ahead.
Yeah.
We had playoffs this past weekend. Let's go ahead and get into all the shenanigans there, so that way we can start to talk and look forward towards season 3, because there is a lot to be excited for there. Um, so we have not talked since before playoffs. Trying to keep the timeline straight in my head. We predicted the entire thing and did a absolutely horrendous job. So we can go through the results and sort of compare to what we actually predicted. I do think that there were a fair amount of upsets. But the first game of the season was.
By the way, Austin, if you go to the playoff bracket page on the main website, there's a full on, or not the website, it is on the website, but on the main, what's it called, spreadsheet. There's a nice and pretty one.
Let's see how I have that cropped.
Not well. You can zoom it out though.
Hey, Colin, I think there's something wrong with this one. I don't see Peaches and Screamers anywhere.
Yeah, well, the Colonials aren't on there either.
Well, we can. I'm too lazy.
That's fine. We can use the other one.
I got great options. I think this is the best.
Oh, that's good.
And we just, we know who 2 is, and for Chester United.
Yeah.
But yeah, first game we had was spread triple option versus Come On Mr. Monty, which came out to an absolutely firing start. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I do not remember the 9-4 win that Jacob apparently had, but that goes crazy. But Danny ended up. I'm gonna go back to our other bracket, Colin, for a little bit of suspense.
That's fine.
Like it feels kind of pointless to talk about any results when you can see literally everything that happened for the entire thing.
Fair.
Because I do want to pay a little bit of credence to each game.
Is that a record for goals?
No, Colin had a
Me versus Garrett was
had like a 15 goal series on Crystal Canyon this season.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, but I think that beat all of season 1, to answer your question.
Yes.
And
9-4, 13 goals.
Yeah, we're actually currently watching not this
That
game.
might tie it. Oh yeah, we had 8-7, me and Garrett.
Yeah. But anyway, what is happening? Freaking All-Star game. We're ready for this. Is this the actual or is this the All Star? This is still All Star, but the two captains played against each other. Anyway, Danny and Jacob played. Danny won. Anyone have any other input on that?
Nope.
This is gonna be a great podcast.
The first round was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. Let's see, just in terms of predictions, it was pretty well split. It was slightly favored to Danny, which I feel like 60-40 for that was pretty fair. Next series, however, was a failed guarantee. And not only did it go against the result, it was a sweep of my team versus Eric's. Obviously, being involved in this, I was pretty stoked about it. Hamilton, how are you feeling about DK's prospects in the playoffs after an early win over PD?
I mean, you gotta be high on DK. I still, especially beating PD. PD's, in my opinion, one of the better captains. But I, as a former captain of DK, he did show up in the first round of playoffs for me last season. Just a little suspicious of how he can do on the back half of this playoffs if he can get the job done.
Yeah, I mean that is a top three finish in season one and a top two spoiler finish in in season two, which I think only PD can match, an exact match. But shooting captains, I think we've learned are never bad. That's kind of the moral of the story from season two. Next series, we preded incorrectly again. We took Grant pretty heavily over Freddie. And interesting stat that seems strange, but I believe Bowser Jr. is now 0-3 in playoff series. I don't think that he has ever won a single playoff series. Colin, how much of that do you attribute to the captain, and how much do you attribute to being under the same manager of Grant both times?
I think when it comes to the playoffs, there comes a lot more emphasis on map pick choice and the way you configure your lineup around what maps you're going to be playing. And when you have a captain that submitted three rosters in 2 seasons, that doesn't really get it done in the back half when you know exactly what's coming and you can plan around it.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair, and credits to Freddie. He didn't get the All-Star shout for his conference, or did he? I can't remember. No, Jacob did. Freddie got.
I think he got second team.
No, Dave got second.
Oh, Dave did get second. Freddie was third.
I feel like Freddie kind of got shafted for actually a really well-managed team, because this was a pretty sizable upset. And we'll see if Bowser Jr. is still under the shackles next season, because I would be excited to see what he can do with a better manager at the helm. And that was a best of 5 that Freddie squeaked out in 4 games, and the next series was a 4-game series as well, which I have the final game finishing 3-3. So that's good. It actually ended on a tie. But this one went to the coin, where the coin picked Reed. Reed unfortunately did not win. Colin, have you talked to Reed at all about how his team's been doing?
I talk to Reed all the time. I think he's devastated.
I did hear from someone who speaks to Reed that he does want to come back for season 3. So even though we haven't gotten to talk to him much about strikers, I guess that means he enjoys it. In theory, doesn't find it a complete waste of time. But it's a shame that we don't have anyone here who speaks to Reed. Maybe one day we'll get his input.
I had an inside source that talked to Reed, So like still indirect communication. But did confirm that he did enjoy season 2. I don't believe that heartbroken would be appropriate to say about his the season 2 exit, but I do think he was invested. Um, I would also state that he was invested enough to know that he was eliminated, hence him still submitting a roster just to flex on the fact that he had gotten in the playoffs. Um, he wasn't ready to leave quite yet. But I am curious to see how season 2 goes or season 3 goes for him if now that he's coming back. Um, with the change of format, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Pretty solid rookie campaign. He did not finish strong. I think he lost 3 series in a row, including this one. But just based off, the power level of the two teams, that wasn't that surprising. And obviously, we were completely split on the pod. And so let's see. At this point, we were 1 for 4 on correct Preds. So that's great. But that was the entirety of our week 1 stream. We just focused on those round 1 matchups and the All-Star games, which we don't have to talk about that at all. Came into the lower bracket, and I was just looking at this, and this is the ghost world. This is now the point where our predicted bracket is so far off that it's hard to even look at.
But there's only one correct team on there.
Yeah, so we're gonna go and look at the actual spreadsheet because that's useless. And we were going for best of 3 games up until very deep in the playoffs. So all of these up until we get to the last 2 games were best of 3 series. And my God, did they fly by? Hamilton, I believe that you were in the room with both Freddie and Jacob during the series.
I was.
Can you give me sort of just like a vibe check on what it was like? We got real journalism here.
I would love, and I haven't done it yet, to go back and listen to the VOD because I know that there was some sound testing done early when we were all sitting very far away from our mic in one computer. And then when this game popped on, I do know that the managers moved closer to the mic. And then we're not necessarily quiet, both of them. And you just love to see the passion on the field. I did send a text after this match that Jacob has actually figured out the biggest hack of all time, in the sense that this man has self-deprecated on his team since the first week of the first season. Never a big fan of his captain, but will continue to redraft his captain. And his captain continues to perform, and he got the job done here again. Meanwhile, Freddie, to his credit, got high on his horse when his team was doing well, wanted to celebrate with the boys. Unfortunately, that's not what the league rewards. The league rewards you hating your team and everything they have ever done. So it was just a class management from Jacob. Freddie, understandable that he wants to get high when the boys are high, but and I will also say Freddie tried to recover when the boys got down. He was down. You could tell how much he cared, and you got to give him credit for that. You got to tip the hat to the manager for just putting his heart out on the field. But unfortunately, it was not enough in the end for Freddie.
I'll be real. I do not know what point you were trying to make through most of that, but
yep. Thank you.
Lots of Freddie getting high and then Freddie getting low. So
Freddie is apparently high as a kite.
Well, when Freddie's team was winning, Freddie was very excited. He was not self-deprecating of his team.
Yeah.
And when Freddie's team got down in score, Freddie also was down on himself and his team, and was very self-deprecating of his team. That's what I was trying to make. Where Jacob was just a consistent.
Self-deprecation.
Yes, Jacob was a consistent self-defecation, and therefore, with that
Two managers
stream
just
of
spot on the meta.
he was able to pull out the win. That's what I was trying to convey.
Yeah, but this was the end of the road for our round one champ, and I feel like he got the most that you could out of a Waluigi team with no dry bones. This is probably where it ends. I think, we keep alluding to the season 3 format, but Waluigi will be a very interesting captain as we talk about that. But Jacob did get the win here. It was a sweep. Next series was a sweep as well. That was Eric's Goose Crusade, winning the Inner Spellcasters matchup to take Adam out. I don't think there was really too much to say here. It wasn't particularly close at many points. And kind of like Colin talked about earlier, by that point, Adam's map choices hadn't switched since week 1, so there's only really how far that he's going to make it in playoffs. Little bit
Similar
of
question
yeah, go ahead.
that you asked me earlier regarding Bowser Jr. Wario also has not had the strongest playoff performances. Different managers, both known to be bad managers. What are we thinking on Wario? Is he just a playoff joker?
Hamilton, I'll pass that to you.
I mean, I just think that he's been poorly managed the last 2 seasons in the playoffs. Owner's been high on his abilities and hasn't self-defecated enough. And I think that next year, if Warriors managed properly, he can be a strong captain.
I'll add to that he has been eliminated by PD very early on in the lower bracket both seasons. And obviously, you can't win the championship if you can't beat one of the best captains in the game. But I don't think he's had particularly great bracket luck. I think that there's a good chance he would have beaten either Yoshi or Waluigi. But it is, it's a fair point that, Wario and Bowser Jr. have the same build and neither of them seem to get it done. Maybe it's something about that little bit of defense that PD and Bowser and DK have that something about defense.
They say defense wins championships.
And freaking Bowser Jr. and Wario are just trying to sell tickets. So, yeah, that was the end of the road for Wario. 2 seasons of terrible management with managers who are not locked in. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in the future. Next game, kind of sad for me to look at in hindsight. I was able to sweep Danny in a best of 3, build a little bit of false hope for future matchups. And at this point, I was feeling pretty darn good about the roster I had built. But even then, I had a feeling that if I were to match up against either PD or Bowser, that it might come back to get me. I don't really know if there's any more for us to really add about DK versus the other power captains. But I'll just ask Hamilton, do you think that DK belongs in the same tier as Bowser and PD?
I struggle because he's had a really good season, and I want to say yes, but I just don't think that his ability allows him to create as many goals as the other 2. And I think that could be a deciding factor in the end.
Yeah, having like the comeback mechanic of like a captain, like with DK, you're just dependent on getting stars. And as maybe a foreshadowing, as I'll play the final moments of the grand finals, sometimes the CPU star usage is a little suspicious. So, but yeah,
I will.
Go ahead, Colin.
I was gonna say, I will say, obviously, PD and Bowser, their power ups are better. I think with the little like the glitch that DK gets where he doesn't get knocked down. I think he's the best pure. It's between him and I guess maybe Wario of just best pure in play striker of the ball. Of just grab the ball, smoke it at the goal, score a goal.
I swear he scores more low charge shots than anyone else. I've got no explanation for it, but I felt it last season when I watched Hamilton play, as he just pulls up with a purple ball from almost half court, and that goes in somehow. I swear that doesn't go in for anyone else. I felt that last season. I still feel that way, even though there's no stats to prove that. And
Steph Curry of the SPL.
no, people don't talk about the DK bug enough. But next game was elimination match: Eric versus Jacob, PD versus Yoshi. Once again, Hamilton, you were in. No, Eric wasn't there. This game we had Jacob just solely on the mic. And if you want a VOD to rewatch, this is definitely a good one. Just listening to Jacob go through this live. But Hamilton, what was it like in the room?
It was a little sad in the room. I thought Jacob was going to be able to pull this one off. And to realize at the end that it wasn't going to happen was a little tough. But at the same time, there was some happiness at the end of the road. We got to go get ice cream after Jacob lost. So, not all losses are created equal.
What a hit there off the bar. Yeah, I don't think that the second game felt as close, but this game one kind of felt like this was the game for the whole series. This is Jacob's home map pick, vanilla on the Vice. He's like 5-1 or 6-1 on this exact matchup. And
I'm trying to remember because I went to the bathroom during one of the games, and I think it was this first game, and I came back and everyone was screaming because I think that Jacob's critter was standing on his head. And it was a really close game. Just making really good saves.
I'm pretty sure also that we need to do an OT check on this.
It was 159, I want to say.
You already checked?
Well, you guys were talking about it because I watched it later, and you guys were talking about it. You're like, well, you're gonna have to check the VOD for the OT, and I'm like, it hasn't shown it yet. It shows it at the end of the game.
Well, but yeah, no, this was the moment where everyone lost their crap. Is when Yoshi had 4 in the red in OT.
Yep.
And went for 0. You got to feel pretty unlucky to not get 1 there. And that's all that was needed. But it felt like it was pretty much over. Of course, it's a Shy Guy goal to ice it. Shy Guy to Shy Guy, no PD involvement. But Eric did get the win.
Second, it'll tell you exactly. There you go. 251 or 151.
True. Good math.
I can add sometimes.
I think there was another one that was 5:59. So I think.
Yeah.
So I think our longest was still 2 minutes and 18 seconds. But that did put Eric, in the lower bracket final against Danny. This was a best of 5 series. Pretty funny that this matchup between PD and Bowser last year was in round 1 of the losers bracket when Garrett and I played each other because the whole Daisy Bowser saga from last season. But this time we kind of got the series to land where it probably should have, and Danny actually dominated. He won in 3 games. It wasn't super close. Colin, what's your final verdict on the Great Shy Guy experiment?
Don't do that.
How many do you think Eric could have won with a double Shy Guy team?
Maybe if the third was a dry bones that he was never gonna get, but I think one shy guy. I think his initial roster might have been able to win the league. I mean, see what the draft was.
Pretty sure it was like a Monty, a Boo, and a Shy Guy. It was like a really like
Shy guy Monty Koopa, actually, maybe, maybe not. But
the
I would like
basically
to
two
point
Shy
out that
Guys.
that I think was also in order.
yes, he could have used the. I think he could have used one of the free agent boos or toads, but you know what? He rocked with his guys. He believed in his guys, and it got him a bronze medal.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it was, I was never really a fan of Danny's draft. I still think that even though they won, Danny's team probably could have been better. But to be fair, if you look back, he kind of ended up with something pretty close to the general meta comp of, Koopa and Hammerbro being two of the outstanding sidekicks. Um, and I think that's largely what this series kind of came down to is the sidekick diff. And, Danny didn't make a single change and was still able to get the dub. But that put him in the grand final. And as we all know, as a known fact, SPL grand finals never disappoints. Even after a day that was chock full of sweeps, we went to game 5 in the grand finals, just like season 1. Um, and just like season 1, beat by beat, I went up 2-1 in the exact same way and lost in game 5 in the exact same way. So that was pretty tough, but I don't think anyone can. I mean, I'm mainly just in this league for the spectacle, so I was just happy that it went 5, that it was a good series, and that it was competitive. Um,
Dropped 7 in grand finals game 7, and I think that needs to be well known and documented as Bowser just absolutely clutching up when it mattered most, and
and
also just being the bane of Austin's existence.
and never forget that he was traded for Daisy last season. Um, Colin, I think you were in the call for last year's grand finals.
Yes.
I think it was just you, me, Freddie, and Dave. Um, how do you? And I guess this time you were a VOD watcher. Um,
Yes.
what was that experience like?
I've both times I've been very long gone out of the competition. I was just excited to watch a nice fun series. I'm glad they both went 5. Absolutely exciting. It would have been cool if game 5 was super tight, but you gotta respect Bowser just going out there and just throwing it on the table and throwing them in the net. Um, but I think they're both great series to conclude first 2 seasons of SPL.
Yeah, and Ham, you had the mirror experience where you were not present for the grand finals of season 1, and then season 2, you were at a watch party essentially. What
Yeah.
was that like?
It was kind of fun to just like, even though a lot of people were out, like there was still a lot of conversation about like next year. Um, Everyone was rooting for just a good series, and we got that. But it was exciting to watch it all go down. It was nice to talk about like, okay, well, what are we talking about next season? There was a lot of conversations about what's going to be different next season and how we might strategize for that. Um, there was conversation about Danny possibly getting to protect a map, and then once he won, what map he might protect if we allow him to do that. Um, and so it was pretty cool to just kind of have a lot of conversation about the future of SPL.
Yeah, it's been a pretty sick, like the amount of involvement that people have, and it's not a serious thing by any means, but how seriously people take it is it's super fun. And I poked some fun at Danny for being dead last season during the stream a little bit, but you know deserving is kind of a buzzword when it, when it comes to SPL, and working hard. I do feel like that Danny has been one of the hardest workers. And talk about someone who rode the lows of last season and still was like a great sport and like a great person to have involved. I do feel like Danny definitely deserved his championship for everything that he did last season. So I was pretty stoked that he got it. And it'll be interesting to see, like Hamilton said, what he does with his perk. That I think we're pretty solid on that. What he does with his perk, and if he's able to defend his title, because we're only 2 seasons in, but no one has been able to win back-to-back championships. But I think that pretty much puts a bookend on season 2 of SPL, which is absolutely crazy. I think the first season went by fast, but this season went by 3 times faster. So now we get to look ahead towards season 3. So for season 3, we are transitioning. We're keeping some elements of season 2, but we're transitioning to a new format where players will not be able to play more than 2 games in a row. So in order to make up for that, teams are now going to draft 7 players, 2 captains, and 5 sidekicks that they're going to have in a rotational system.
And that's 24 captains. How is that ever going to work?
Great segue, Colin. We are also going to be splitting into a 2-tier system. The name of the second tier is still TBD. It always confused me how in England, the top flight is called the English Premier League, and the second league is called the English Championship. So if we were going based off, how we named our first league, you guys would be named the Strikers Championship. Me saying you guys because both Colin and Hamilton are relegated into tier 2.
What?
So that name is still TBD, but we definitely need to figure out a moniker because it's gonna.
Well, if we go by season 2 rules, Danny gets to name tier 1, and I don't know who gets to name tier 2.
I mean, if it's up to me, then tier 1 is MFMK and tier 2 is Spellcasters.
I thought tier 1 was going to be the Strikers Premier League, and tier 2 was going to be the MFMK.
Can't be putting me in the Spellcasters.
Both finalists came from the MFMK, and it's an MFMK champion. That's all I'm gonna say.
This is the only 2 MFK people in tier 1. Anyway.
But yeah, it'll be a 2-tier system. The details of promotion and relegation for the future are still TBD, but those are going to be the stakes. If you're in tier 1, you're playing for the championship, the SPL crown. If you're in tier 2, you're just trying to make it back to tier 1. And don't think that tier 2 is going to be a joke. It is stacked with some of the most hardworking and involved captains we have in the entire league, along with potentially a new manager or 2. So
this is a data-driven league.
Always has been. So with that in mind, kind of similar to how we did before last season, we're going to make a tier list of all characters in SPL in terms of their draft prospects, where we're sort of weighting them in the draft. And I think this is going to be a surprisingly different exercise than when we did this a couple months ago. Some of us, like Hamilton, might have different views about where we rate the best sidekicks in comparison to the best captains.
Drybone's S tier, first overall pick. You don't need a good captain.
Yeah, especially when you need 2 of them.
Run it out there with 4 dry bones, Daisy, and Peach.
I'm genuinely curious if you manage to get 5 dry bones, Daisy and Peach, do you think you have a chance of winning the league? That is my new question to you.
No.
I do. I think the fact that Waluigi won with 3 shows that with like and that was against like the best possible teams created. I do. Colin, you disagree?
I disagree.
Mm. Well, let's get into the list, and then we can open up conversations like that as we go. But we'll do the usual way where we'll place, and then we'll go back to change. So I will place the first person. I'm gonna take the low hanging fruit, and put Peach in F. Just because that just got to get that out of the way early. Colin, who would you like to place?
I will take the high hanging fruit. That doesn't really work. I'm gonna put Bowser in S. Defending champ, captain. Very high chance to go number 1 off the board in both drafts.
I'm gonna follow up real fast and put PD in S. Similar logic. I do think I take PD over DK, even though DK made it to the finals this year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. This is just gonna get harder as we go along. I'll take the other low hanging fruit and I'll put Daisy above Peach and F.
What are you saying about my captains, Austin?
They're garbage, and Dry Bones was overvalued.
No. I am going to. This is going to be an interesting draft because it's 5 sidekicks.
5 sidekicks.
5 sidekicks, 2 captains. Does that mean captains are worth more? Does that mean sidekicks are worth more? I don't know. I am going to go with Donkey Kong at A.
Safe.
Definitely,
I went safe.
Definitely higher than where he was last year.
Yes. Shoot. Captain can shoot. Captain equal good.
It's really good.
I'm gonna put the first sidekick in, and I'm gonna put Dry Bones in A.
The 5 times relegated Dry Bones.
Don't think it had a lot to do with him.
What's crazy is like every single Dry Bones still averaged like 0.7, 0.8 goals per game.
Yeah,
literally every single one. I can't see that. But anyway, like they didn't even have a bad season, and it's not like Monty where they were like outliers.
Dry Bones all goals per game 0.9, 0.7, 0.8, 0.8, 0.8.
Yeah,
Dry Bones as a whole 0.82.
The most consistent character in all strikers.
Yeah.
I am gonna put Yoshi in A as well. Back to back top 4 finishes, and I believe like I don't know where he finished at the end of top 3 in goals per game as a balanced sidekick and leading in Mega Strike goals per game. He's never out of a game. I'm gonna put him in A.
Do I want to be fun? No, I'm scared. I'm gonna. It's a good A. Thing is, I want to put him A. You know what? I'm doing it anyway. He was poorly managed this year. I'm putting Wario in A. I think when it comes to draft, we're looking at draft value, not last season's performance. I think Wario is an A tier draft capital player.
I'd agree. And if you look here, we're kind of at six people, so that's kind of like your first round pick, and I think Wario's there. Sorry, Hamilton.
No, you're good. You say it's like a first round. I am very curious to know where Dry Bones goes in the first round, because I don't think it should be 4.
Well, we can adjust that if needed.
I'm gonna put Luigi in B.
That's an interesting take.
Lots.
He does. I think if I
I don't think he'll finish at the top of B. I want to clarify that.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with Bowser Jr. I feel like him and Wario belong together. They've pretty much done the exact same thing across 2 seasons.
Yeah, they have.
I'm gonna put him also in A.
I'm gonna do something that might be controversial, but I have reasoning. I'm not not that. I'm not putting Boo in S tier. I'm going to put Koopa in B tier. Now my reasoning for this is because of the way we're doing stamina / fitness, whatever you want to call it, next season, there's going to be a lot of roster changes, which means your roster is going to need to be flexible. Koopa is that glue guy. He can go in any roster. He can play defense. He can play midfield. If you need someone to just throw in there and make the team work, he gives you a chance to win.
What like round do you think Koopa start going? Like how far down? Like let's say most people pick, either a captain or a side or a dry bones in round 2. Do you think that Koopa is like third priority behind like good captains and dry bones? Like where do you think he compares to the other sidekicks?
I think, not to give away all of my draft strategy, and obviously it will depend where I am in the draft, I would take. Now, this probably goes against me putting him. How many rounds? I guess we have 12 rounds, right?
7.
No, 7 rounds. I can do math. Sorry, I'm tired. Oh, God. No, that makes my B pick look bad because I was going to say like round 5. I think I would try to. Well, I don't know. Maybe bump him down to C.
Let him stick. Let him stick in B, and then we'll. Sorry to have opened that. That's an end of table discussion. Hamilton, who you
I
place
just think
in?
he's gonna be valuable, but I don't know if he's someone you reach for. I guess.
Freddie got promoted, and so I will say it might vary in the 2 tables, but I'm gonna put Waluigi in C. I think that he might go a little higher in the top table than he will in the bottom table.
Outscored Wario this season.
That's crazy. And has 2.
But 2 more games, so not in goals per game, just in total goals.
A first place finish and a 6th place finish.
Yep.
That's much better than Luigi.
In goals per game, he was exactly where you would expect him to be, which is I guess tied for 7th, so 7th, 8th, 9th. Sorry.
I'm gonna put Hammer Bro. Let me look at stats. I need to open this up.
Bro, 0.62 goals per game. The lowest Hammer Bro had half a goal per game.
I feel like he had a solid season altogether, and there were a number of series where a Hammer Bro single-handedly won it, just about. Fuck. I'm gonna put him in. I'm gonna put him in the top of C, with putting a pin in that for later. Colin.
Oh right, it is me. My boy. There's no other place to put him besides D tier.
Yeah.
Does that mean I am against picking him if it comes around to it, and he's my second captain, you know what? I made him work. I can make him work for a third of a season.
And he's got that Nintendo hat.
He's got that Nintendo hat.
Hamilton, we're
But
good.
he deserves to be above the princesses, but probably below everyone else.
Yeah, I think he might deserve a D tier of his own when it comes to captain. Hamilton, this you're getting to a tough crowd here.
You just said the did needs to be in a tier of his own. I was just immediately going to give him a friend. I was going to put Mario above the did in D tier.
The did perform at a higher, well, not individually. The did's team performed higher, but individually Mario outclassed Diddy.
Yeah, it's because Mario works harder.
He's deserving. D for deserving.
Mario 2 tiers below Luigi's Wild.
I know that's terrible. They're not that different at all.
I disagree.
Look, check the stats and then get back to me. This is freaking brutal.
Mario scored one more goal in one more game.
What you want from your captain?
I don't want to place any
with
of
more
these.
Mega Strike goals.
Which one made playoffs?
That's a great point. Back-to-back 8th places. Can't argue with that. Jesus. I'm gonna put Monty in C just because we had 2 Montys that performed at such a high level this season. There's that potential that your Monty could be dominant, but he also could blow. So C seems fair.
Also the potential you get Montgomery Mole with 1 goal in 14 games.
What a stud.
How many goals? What were Mr. Monty's stats?
Mr. Monty had 22 goals in 21 games.
It's all about how you coach him.
The only player to play in more games and score the same amount or less goals in the regular season only, because I know he slotted a couple in the playoffs, was Terry.
You see, you can't say stuff like that and tell me that the simulation is not alive. Like, you can't tell me that Mr. Monty scored 22 goals in 21 games and another Monty scored 1 in 14 and tell me this isn't a real league where, like, they're sentient. I know they are. I look at this little Monty's face and I know this is Mr. Monty and I know he's alive.
Can't be right. There's no way Terry scored 5 goals in the playoffs, right?
There's no way.
Something's wrong with my stats.
Hamilton, I believe it's you. No, wait, Colin.
Colin has to go last. Nice.
Great. Speaking of Toad, slot him in C tier. I don't know what to do with these sidekicks.
Yeah, this is rough.
Toad, he's good on the teams he's good. He's bad on the teams he's bad. And that's all I have for Toad.
I do think Boo is worse than Toad. I don't think he's a whole tier worse than Toad. However, I still think that Boo needs to be in D. I think he goes in front of the captains.
By the way, your Toad did score 5 goals in the playoffs.
Terry,
That's a valid point.
Terry went ham.
He's had 1 goal in the regular season and scored 5 in the playoffs.
Somehow, some way, we're 2 seasons in and I still don't feel like we have good Birdo data.
The thing is, Birdo has some of the most OP things. It just doesn't use them.
Yeah.
The most OP skill shot. The spin's good. Birdo 2v1's a Dry Bones and a Koopa on Crystal Canyon.
2 Birdos beat Colin's entire team
2v2s.
on Thunder
2v. Oh,
Island.
it wasn't. No, it was just. Yeah.
Yeah, you stole the other ones.
Yeah.
Uh,
I forgot about that part.
I'm gonna put Birdo. If we're putting Boo a tier below Toad, then I'll put Birdo a tier below Monty, even though they're the same.
I love that Chad Guy was the last one placed.
Colin.
Shy guy. F.
Say less.
Actually, what? Eric's gonna pick him early. Whatever. Leave him an F.
So the non Eric Shy Guys. What is wrong with my stat sheet? I know these players.
It's on playoffs.
Oh, I'm on
It's
playoffs.
on playoffs.
I'm on playoffs. Yeah.
I put it on playoffs.
Okay.
It's
I was like, I know they played more games than this. The non-Eric Shy Guys, 0.32 goals per game and 0.58. Okay.
we could slide him up
Yeah,
a little bit.
Okay. I think I overall as a whole might weigh captains more than you guys going into season 2 just based off all this, because I do not think that I will touch a dry bones before even most of the balanced captains, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, let's say you are a like third or fourth pick in the draft. Who are you taking in round 1, Hamilton?
One of PD, Bowser, Donkey.
Yeah. And then so it comes back to you in round 2. Are you looking towards a dry bones, or are you looking towards, like, let's say Mario, Luigi, and Waluigi, one of them is still on the table? Would you take a dry bones before you took whatever leftover of them is available?
See, that's a tough question because I just got burned by that decision. But at the same time, I'm not stuck with that shitty captain for an entire season. I still have a chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a good answer for you.
That's fair.
I think it would depend on which captain's on the board. If by like some miracle it's like anyone that's currently above like Luigi, Bowser Jr., Wario, Yoshi for some reason, I don't think there's a decision to be made there. But if it's Waluigi, maybe not even Waluigi, but if it's Mario, did, or definitely the princesses, I think there's a decision to be made there. Like if you're already stuck with the princesses, I don't see why you wouldn't grab a dry bones first.
Yeah, but I think that's like, other than the did and the princesses, I would consider pretty much any, even Mario. I would consider that would be hard to pass up on.
Yeah.
Taking a captain unless there's only speed captains left.
I think that there are some boys who might not have fully experienced the princess treatment yet, and they might be persuaded if they, especially if they can get 2 dry bones quickly, to pursue that. But I think anyone who's been paying attention to it or has been a part of it is not eager to go back.
I will say, if you have a top, probably you first overall could all pretty much guarantee triple dry bones.
I think they can guarantee.
I don't know about
double.
that.
Assuming a lot of people go captain first 2 picks, you can get 2 on the swing. No, it's not guaranteed. but
Oh,
it would
you're
require.
saying you'd have to take one in your first round?
Yeah,
Oh my god, that'd be insane.
you could have to take one in your like first overall. Assume no more than one other person takes one in the first 2 rounds, and then swing. I guess maybe not then, because someone's probably tail end of the second round is probably where they start going.
I don't know though, because like if you don't take one first overall, that's a full captain that's shifted down.
Yeah,
Yeah. That
It'd
was
be a
not on my
bad
radar at all. I
choice.
was thinking whoever's first overall pick likely gets the best captain and then also likely gets double dry bones.
Yeah, that's what I was putting together.
too
Someone
dangerous.
did point this out to me though. Having two good captains is important for playoffs
True.
because unless you win grand finals, like if unless you win the upper bracket and go straight to the grand finals, that's only 3 games. But if you've got to go through the bottom of the table, at some point you've got to play your second captain.
Yeah, I guess we have to figure it out how it will all work for playoffs.
I think that needs to be decided pre-draft. I would also
Yes.
clarify.
Yeah. I'd like to take dry bones and put him into B because I don't see how anyone could justify drafting him before any of those 6 captains.
No,
Oh,
no,
you're
no.
yeah,
I would do it again.
yeah. That's fair.
The next thing I'd like to bring up for debate, and I'm gonna pose this to Colin, is do we really think that Luigi is a tier above Waluigi and 2 tiers
No.
above Mario? Do we?
Yes.
No.
Is that really gonna stand?
No.
Boo.
So then, do they
I
move
would
up, or does
bump them.
Luigi? Does
I
Luigi?
would bump Mario up to right behind Luigi, and I'd bump Waluigi up as well, but lower down in B.
So
Yeah, like there.
in round 2, Colin, you're saying if Mario, Luigi, or Waluigi are on the board, you're taking them before you pick up the first dry bones.
Yeah, and I would consider Waluigi as well, just because he mega strikes and he's a decent second captain.
Hamilton, what are your thoughts on that? In second round, are you taking a
That's,
dry bones before you take any of those 3?
yeah. Yeah.
Which ones are you taking it before?
All of them. Hold on, hold on. I'm taking all of them before I take a dry bones, is what I was trying.
Okay. Okay. I thought you were just signing up for a princess. I thought you were just
No.
signing up for a princess.
I have a slight. I don't know. Sorry, speaking out of turn. Looking at this board, obviously, it all depends on what you think your team needs. There's a part of me that wants to slightly bump Diddy up because there are times that I might be like, you know what? I don't really care what my last sidekick is. I want to snag Diddy before I get stuck with a princess. But I don't know where to put that.
That was pretty compelling, but all I know is I went Diddy before princess. But for that reason, he may end up going in round 2 or 3.
Yeah, just because you don't want to get left with the princess, you take the one has had some
I think you
form
can bump
of
him all the way up to the
success.
front of C.
Okay.
I think he should be behind Hammer Bro.
I would like
Um,
to open up the Hammer Bro conversation. Do we think that it's kind of we've done a couple rankings where he was on the same tier as Dry Bones. Do we think that is true, or is he a tier below?
I think that he's
Well, I don't
up.
think Koopa should be on the same tier as Dry Bones to start with. I think that's fair. I think Hammer Bro should go to the top of C.
Hamilton, what are your thoughts?
I think that I'm gonna draft the Did before I draft a Hammer Bro there.
So what round do we think the Did reasonably goes in?
I reasonably think it's 2 to 3.
Just to avoid the princesses.
Yep. There might be some bias in my opinion, but I do think it's 2 to 3.
Colin, do you take the did before you take a hammer, bro?
Where am I picking in this scenario? I think it depends on my scenario. If I have a shooting captain, probably, because I just don't want a hammer bro, but I'd probably just pick up a different character instead. If I have a balanced character, I might take a hammer bro because they're valuable on Diddy and Princess teams.
Realistically, unless someone trolls, like you're gonna have. I guess Yoshi's the only balance. Like you should have one of these up here. Like you should have a shooting and or mega striking captain as your primary.
Trolls, you can get 2 if you have like the last pick.
Unless you can somehow guarantee that you snag all 5 Dragons.
Which there are only 4, so that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I thought there was 5 of each captain. My bad.
Four of each sidekick. And with that, I want to point out that I will make this known before the draft. The sidekicks and captains from season 2 will be their personalities, names, and legacy stats will carry over to season 3 in the division that they ended in. So Diddy Kong Division 2 Diddy Kong will have the stats from season 2. Tier 1 Diddy Kong will be a brand new character. All 4 dry bones in Division 2 will have stats from this past season, and then there'll be Reed's dry bones I'd have to put into Division 1 because there weren't enough dry bones for them all to get relegated, and his made it the furthest.
Colin, on that note, I have a request.
Yeah.
Next season, season 4, all the characters in the 2nd division on the team that gets 6th get booted from the league and get new characters.
all right.
Colin, I have a request for season 6.
You're gonna have to remind me. A year and a half.
Okay, so I think that we have Diddy in a good spot. Like Diddy and Hammerbro, I think are in a good spot. That we're like flip flopping that hard between the two of them. But I don't think if it does the same argument apply between like a dry bones and the did then, where you draft the did to try and avoid
dry bones before the
princess. I think I start loading up with dry bones before I pick up the did because Hamilton may have a different perspective, but I don't think the gap between him and the princesses is astronomical. I'd rather have a good sidekick team.
Yeah, I think the difference is you don't have to. That's your second captain. They're only playing in 1 out of 3 games. If that's your best sidekick, they're probably playing in 2 out of 3 games. So they're playing in twice as many games, which gives them more value in my brain.
Plus, like, go ahead, Ham.
I don't disagree with the logic. I just don't want a princess.
Yeah, the interesting thing is also too, like, you're not gonna have an A team and a B team rotation of sidekicks. Like, you're gonna have to figure, like, in my mind, I'm kind of trying to figure out what sort of like blend of lineup I can make that's like good. Like, you want to have like cohesion across the board.
I've got an important question. Because you can't run an A team and a B team, what happens if you don't have enough sidekicks with stamina?
That's just poor management.
Yes, it's absolutely poor management.
You would get the. You would probably have to. You'd probably be forced to drop someone to pick up a free agent.
Did we say? Sorry that this is now just going to be discussed on the pod, but did we say that sidekicks off the waiver have
Well, in my brain, they were going to have the stamina that they should have. So if they played the last week, so like it'll recharge with, like if they have a week off, they'll regain their stamina. I think. So I guess
Yeah,
they'll be
this
full.
is a break in the system that will inevitably come through. So that's a good point, Hamilton. Because then what if you don't have a waiver claim? I don't think that would ever actually happen. I think I like the idea of you having to drop. That'd be kind of funny.
I do think that dropping is the next requirement. However, I'm then going to go down and say there's only 2 characters in the waiver pool.
Yes.
And so if 2 waiver claims are made that week and you didn't get it,
Then you forfeit.
Then you have to run the Peach and Triple Boo team.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
Yep. If you ever don't,
And
we're putting this. I'm putting this in writing in the white papers. If you ever are that screwed,
If you are unable to field a team,
you
you
I would
get
also
Peach and Triple Boo.
I would also like to propose that not, and this might be difficult for Colin, but instead of your players, because 1 rest is supposed to get them to full stamina, can they all players only gain 1 game's rest as opposed to the full reset?
Sure, just please to Dave and Eric and maybe one other person who might listen to this. Please don't put me in this position.
we will make this very clear at the time of the draft.
We should probably end this and discuss rules
Yeah.
off of.
Peach
Sorry.
Triple Boo was the stakes. No, that's it was. I'm glad that this came up because I didn't even think about that. Okay. Anyone have any opinions on the rest of the sidekicks?
No.
It's hard because they're all niche. Like
Yeah.
season 2 has shown that they all fulfill a role.
Yeah. Even
Like one of
Shadow.
each sidekick make top like 4 except for Dry Bones.
I think it was top 3.
Top damn.
And there were no duplicates across Danny in my team in the grand finals. So, pretty sick. Everyone has a place. Yeah, I don't really care about, but I don't really have any opinions there. I think this is good. We're gonna take a couple weeks off. We're talking timeline. But this has got me even more excited for the draft. Because I think there is an increased level of depth that we have never seen to our system for season 3. And I guess we should probably talk about it a little bit more, or do you think that we've covered enough ground? Is there anything that we've missed that's kind of like glaring for season 3?
I think we've talked about everything that's finalized.
Yeah.
I think we should turn off the pod and finish everything that's not finalized.
Yeah. Well, that's probably smart. Basically, splitting into 2 tiers. Every team is going to have 7 players that you're going to have to rotate based on stamina. Danny is going to get to protect a map of his choice from being banned in tier 1. Tier 2 is going to have a map randomly banned again, so we'll have separate map pools for tier 1 and tier 2.
Not the same map that gets banned.
Yeah, true. There's going to be different stakes for tier 1 and tier 2. It's going to be a good time. Everyone's going to play each other twice. We're going to have our longest season ever just in terms of weeks.
Are we doing 10 weeks? That was my thought.
Yep. Everyone plays everyone twice. And I kind of liked the length of the weeks that we had this year. Like I don't, if we're sticking to best of 3, which I think we are now, we're getting into rule talk, which is great. Then I don't want to go to the more than 6 series, because if they all go 3, then that's a long time. But yeah, anyone have anything else for the people?
Shout out Dave. Princess Gang.
Anyone listening to this monstrosity.
Yeah. Shout out Fred. Think he's there sometimes. Shout out my dad who listened that one time. Shout out Jake who
Grant.
listened one time.
Shout out
Potential,
Grant and Adam.
potential season 3 captain. Slight leak there. But on that note, peace, y'all.